Welcome, future CMAs. Today, we're diving into the absolute high-stakes balancing act of corporate dividend policy. If you're prepping for part 2 of the CMA exam, you already know this is a massive topic. We're going to look at exactly what influences a company's dividend policy, why stability is, well, practically an obsession, and how management's actions send absolute ripples through the stock market. Because honestly, this isn't just about the math. It's about strategy, market psychology, and ultimately maximizing value. To kick things off, I want you to think about a kind of counterintuitive scenario. Imagine a company is making massive profits. We're talking record-breaking, off-the-charts net income. So why might they choose to pay absolutely zero dividends to their shareholders? Sounds a bit backwards, right? If you're making all this money, shouldn't you be handing it back to the owners? Well, as we're going to see, the answer to that question reveals the absolute core of corporate finance strategy. So here's our game plan for this explainer. 1. Defining dividend policy. 2. The growth trade-off. 3. The value of stability. 4. The signaling hypothesis. And finally, number 5, an exam focus on policy factors. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, defining dividend policy, distribute versus retain. To really get this, we have to understand what financial managers are actually looking at when they stare at their net income at the end of a reporting period. At its core, dividend policy is simply a distribution of earnings. It's that crucial kind of make-or-break decision determining exactly what portion of a corporation's net income gets distributed to shareholders as a cash reward, and what portion gets retained in the business for reinvestment. Think of it as a fork in the road for literally every single dollar of profit. Does that dollar leave the building, or does it stay in-house to buy new machinery, fund research, or pay off debt? And this perfectly illustrates the fundamental tension in corporate finance. You are constantly weighing the desire to reward your shareholders today, putting cash right in their pockets, against the absolute non-negotiable necessity of funding the company's future tomorrow. If you give all the cash away, how on earth do you grow? It's exactly like being a farmer. Do you sell all your seeds at the market today just to get paid right now? Or do you plant some to ensure you actually have a massive crop next year? The most critical factor a manager has to consider here is their future planned uses of cash. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the growth trade-off, slicing the pie. This is the real-world dilemma managers face when they're trying to grow a company. If you picture your net income as a pie, the trade-off is incredibly visual. Slicing out a huge piece for dividends leaves you with a much, much smaller piece of retained earnings to reinvest. You simply cannot spend the same dollar twice. A company with a rapid growth rate is going to have a massive need to finance that growth using those retained earnings. Because of this, aggressive growth companies usually have much lower dividend payout ratios. And you know what? Their shareholders are completely fine with this because they're hoping to score way larger capital gains in the future as the company's stock price takes off. So this brings up a crucial point, and honestly, a super common trap for candidates. Do not assume a high dividend means a healthy, rapidly growing company. Actually, a high dividend rate mathematically means a slower rate of growth, simply because that internal funding engine is being depleted. Conversely, a high growth rate usually means a low dividend rate. And hey, that's the exact answer to our hook question from earlier. A wildly profitable company might pay zero dividends because they are literally plowing every single cent back into explosive growth. Now, because both a high growth rate and a high dividend rate are super desirable to different types of investors, your job as a financial manager is to try and achieve the perfect balance. This balance isn't just a guess, it's heavily driven by predicting your future cash needs. And the ultimate goal of finding the sweet spot between payout and growth is to maximize the firm's share price on the open market. All right, Section 3, the value of stability, calming the market. Now we're escalating into the psychological layer of corporate finance, which is a really fascinating reality you can observe in the stock market every single day. Why do corporate profits often swing wildly from year to year? Way up one year, totally down the next, while their dividend payouts stay rigidly flat, or just steadily increase at a tiny predictable rate. Normally, corporations try incredibly hard to maintain a stable level of dividends, even when their actual earnings are on a total roller coaster. The answer? Shareholders absolutely hate surprises. Wall Street likes a predictable routine more than a house cat does. Many investors buy a specific stock with the explicit, baked-in expectation of receiving a certain dividend every single year. They rely on it for their income. So maintaining a stable payout makes the firm look way less risky to these investors. And in the finance world, less perceived risk directly translates to a higher market price for the stock. This is exactly why management generally won't ever raise a dividend unless they are absolutely certain that the new, higher payout can be sustained over the long haul. Moving right along to Section 4, the signaling hypothesis. Actions speak louder. This whole obsession with stability leads us straight to a key theory you absolutely must understand for the exam. The signaling hypothesis translates perfectly to the old saying, actions speak louder than words. Because firms generally have a very active, highly protective policy strategy regarding their dividends, any sudden change acts like a massive red flashing light. If management suddenly cuts the dividend, it signals to the entire market that insiders expect earnings to drop significantly in the future. Even if management puts out a glowing press release saying, hey, everything is fine, the actual action of cutting the dividend tells investors to panic. Conversely, a steady increase signals management's deep, genuine confidence in future cash flows. Okay, let's bring it all together. Section 5, Exam Focus, Policy Factors. Let's land the plane and look at exactly how you'll be tested on these decisions. Beyond just wanting to maintain stability, you really need to know the specific, tangible factors that tie a financial manager's hands. First up, legal restrictions. Ordinarily, dividends just cannot be paid out of paid-in capital. You have to have a positive balance in retained earnings. Second, as we discussed, earning stability and rate of growth completely dictate how much cash you can safely let go of. Then you've got debt restrictions. Debt covenants in bond indentures often strictly limit the dividends a firm can declare, just to ensure bondholders get paid first. Now, here is a massive success tip, and honestly, a huge pitfall for candidates on the exam. Do not confuse net income with liquidity. You've got to remember that regardless of a stellar, record-breaking earnings record on the income statement, a firm must have actual, physical cash available in the bank before they can ever pay a dividend. Earnings simply do not equal cash. Don't let a tricky multiple-choice question bait you into approving a dividend for a highly profitable company that happens to be completely cash-poor. You also have to remember your shareholders' perspectives regarding their tax position. Wealthy investors in high tax brackets might actually want you to retain earnings to avoid paying current taxes on dividend income. They'd much rather wait for those future capital gains. Finally, there is the residual theory of dividends. This theory states that you should only pay dividends from the residual, or leftover earnings, but only after you've funded all available internal investment opportunities that exceed your required return. Basically, if your internal projects are poor, pay the dividend. If your internal projects are great, keep the money and build the business. I'll leave you with this final thought to really test your instincts before exam day. If your company's earnings magically doubled this year due to some weird market fluke, would doubling your dividend be a brilliant signal of strength or a fatal trap just waiting to spring? Think about that intense demand for stability and remember that real growth requires retention. Keep these tensions straight in your head and you are absolutely going to crush this section of the CMA exam. Good luck!